All right, let me know that you can hear this. So, we're going to talk about music beds, and there's too much to talk about. There is way too much to talk about. So, but what we're going to do, this for Dale. Dale requested this, and so we're making it happen. And what we're talking about, so people want to know about putting music in behind a voiceover. And you have so many options. Today we're going to talk about, it all starts with what is the voiceover, what is it about, what is the feel, and know that all music has feels. It can feel gentle, it can be happy, it can be sad, it can be intense, it can sound like we're going to a racetrack. And all those things have an influence on the voice. And I'm going to play you a good example here that's a minute long that has a combination of voice, music, sound effects, all together as one 1 minute show, and then we'll talk about all the different aspects that went into putting it together and alternatives and artistic choices. And it gets kind of crazy. I really need to just do a course on this. It's a couple hours long because there's both the science of it and then there is the art of it. And so, Dale, very helpful that you can that you can hear it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's really good I appreciate that. And all right, that's always so helpful. All right, so I'm going to play you this example here. And in this example, voice is in the yellow track, green is music. I've got some background, you'll hear. And then these are explosions. Every time you hear a little explosion, and sometimes I'll do this with music. I will take what's down here and I will have a similar effect with music, but I'm using these because, and you'll see why. So here's this cut here. And then if you're hearing it well in terms of everything on the Studio One, be sure to throw a little comment on there that you are hearing that well. So here is this right here.
Are you ready for the most electrifying event of the year? Witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion is back on October 28th at the Shed Dockyard. Witness the clash of titans, Garcia versus Lamb. Watch these fighters go head-to-head in a battle for glory and supremacy with the ABO title on the line. Featuring the biggest names in Bermuda's boxing and kickboxing, these warriors are ready to leave it all in the ring. To the winner goes the spoils, the acclaim, and the belt. 2 enter, 1 will leave a champion. Undefeated defending champ Andre Lamb and hungry challenger Chico Garcia from Mexico. Join us for a night of unforgettable moments where heroes are made and legends are born. Don't miss Garcia versus Lamb, the boxing event of a lifetime. Get your tickets now at epicbda.com. Be part of the action. Garcia versus Lamb, October 28th at the Shed Dockyard. It's showtime.
Okay, so that's what happened. Donnie called me, and he had this gig, and he had this voiceover, and they wanted it fully produced. And I said, sure. So the first step was to go out and find the music. And then I know they wanted it to sound like it was a boxing match. And I actually couldn't find a good boxing match sound effect in terms of the background, so I found a parade, and I used that. And then I wanted some real emphasis, and sometimes I can do it with the music. In this case, because it was boxing, I originally went out and I was looking for bam, wow, boxing related stuff. Couldn't find that, but what I did find was some explosions, and so I can solo the explosions here, mute the other stuff, and it allowed me to get some emphasis. And for example, that was one of them at the very end. Had another one. Okay, those two are very similar, but they are not identical, obviously, or maybe it's not obvious over the wires there, but they're not identical. And then I had to find music, so I went through and found this piece of music, and I thought, all right, this is pretty cool. Let me play the music. And that sounds to me epic, exciting, showtime, has that kind of feel that I would expect, driving forward groove. It wasn't long enough. I'll show you the original one, and you can see there's even a split right here. Let me change the color, and you can see the split even easier. Wait, I don't want that. I want the color picker here, and I'm going to go really dark. And when you see really dark, there's half here, because I actually had to take the music and I had to repeat it, and I worked my way backwards, and I figured out, I'll just show you the music here in a second, but it wasn't long enough. The music actually was long enough. The music was maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I don't remember. But it had an intro that was longer, and when I'll play you the intro and you'll see why I had to do what I had to do. And then I wanted some crowd noise, so I added this underneath the Okay, so and then at the end, it was getting too quiet, and I turned it up a little at the end. So, that's all happening in the background there. And then I had the explosions, and then I had to put it all together. Then I had to make artistic choices. As a matter of fact, I was playing this back today, and I realized, at the very end, where this happens, and I have this explosion at the very end. This is actually what the client asked for. They said, "Could you give us an explosion at the very end? It's not exciting enough at the end." Oh, sure. You want it, and they said, yeah, right at the very end, all by itself. And so I said, okay, yeah.
Dockyard, it's showtime.
And as I was playing it back today, I really realized, you know what? If I had artistic control over that boom, and I only thought of it afterward, because I probably would have. A lot of times, by the way, I do this all the time. Clients ask for something, and then if I can come up with something better, I'll send them the one that they want, and then I'll send one that is the way I think it should be. And instead, what I'm going to do is go here. And I think this is, I can mute this and Shift M. Yeah, I just muted that. And this is how I would have done it if it was just me, like listening back to it later. So I'm going to go here.
8th at the Shed Dockyard. It's showtime.
So I would have put the explosion with showtime. So showtime is the explosion.
It's showtime.
That I think was better than what I did here. This is actually what I sent the client. Because this is what they asked for, and kind of my first impression was not, oh, I have to do whatever they asked for. It's just I hadn't really thought about it, and I said, sure, I can do that, and it was fine.
It's showtime.
I think if you don't hear the other one, you think either one of them's fine. So but after coming back to it a few days, actually it was a couple weeks ago, but after coming back to it, when I'd been away from it, I realized I would have put that on Showtime now. And that's the kind of decision that you have to go through when you're doing all this music stuff, that it's not just get a piece of music, throw it on there. It's the artistic part of making it make sense, both that the music makes sense in terms of the feel, then how loud it is relative to the other items is important. Then what effects do you use? Then how do you manipulate it? Now I'm using Studio One to do all this. I'm using all Studio One effects. It makes it really easy because they have all these things. These are included with the $79 version, so that part's easy. And you can hide all these tracks. And so I didn't start with that complexity. What happened was he sent me the voice, and I listened to it. Now the other thing is, there is some reverb on it, and I'll explain that. I'm going to turn that off. So this was the dry voice. I'm not going to play the whole thing again. You heard the whole thing. But notice the difference between a totally dry voice. So here was the original.
Are you ready for the most electrifying event of the year?
And then I'm going to go ahead and I will turn on the reverb at one point, because here's what happened. This kind of voice, while today we're talking about music beds, a lot of times when you put music in, you will also add some reverb to the voice because it sounds nice. This one's a little over the top because of the nature of the reed, but the concepts are the same. Okay, so listen to this. So I'm going to you'll see me turn on right here is my room reverb. I'll make it big so you can see it bigger. And then I'll hide this guy here. So I have my room reverb, and I have my on-off switch right here. So when blue is on, and then it's off, you see it light up a little bit. So listen to this, and listen to the difference between no reverb and with reverb. No reverb.
Here, witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion is back.
Now, what you should notice is, wow, that sounds like a lot of reverb, okay? You should kind of be almost choking on the reverb there. And yes, all by itself, it sounds like too much. And note that the good reverbs, I had 20 options to choose from, and I used a large club one. But if I was really needing a situation where I wanted a lot less reverb, I could have been using this
Dockyard, witness the clash of titans, Garcia versus Lamb. Watch these fighters go head-to-head in a battle for glory and supremacy with the ABO title on the line.
I don't know if you heard the difference there. over the wires, but I went from a small club to a large club, and it changed the overall dimensions and the way the reverb works. And there are enough most of the good reverbs out there, you have a bunch of presets, and you can pick among them, whether it's the Catacombs, whether it's whatever, small room, big room, bedroom, bathroom. They have that stuff all figured out. And if you don't like any of that, then you can go ahead and manipulate all the knobs manually and come up with something that you like even better. Now, to be honest with you, I don't remember doing that because I just pick one and go, yep. And I have changed the mix a couple times, but it's really, really rare for me to do that. So first thing, if you're going to have music, a lot of times you will have reverb. I have other effects that I put on the voice to make it bigger, thicker if I need it for certain types of reads, but I just want you to know, once you add music, like this reverb sounds kind of intense all by itself. It sounds like a lot. It is a lot.
Ultimate boxing
But when we add the music, and then remember, we're having music, and in this case, we have crowd noise.
event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion is back.
Once I add the other things, then all of a sudden that reverb doesn't sound out of place. So you are going to need more. So that's one of the things that will happen anytime you're adding music. It can change what you want to do with the voice, because the voice itself can end up getting overwhelmed in some respects. Totally depends on the music. If I had a soft guitar here, then of course it wouldn't fit the spot. And I'll actually give you an example of that, and then I'll show you what I did with the music to make that work. And then I'll take some questions and see if anybody has anything that they want to talk about. Okay, I'm looking at the comments here. Good. So here, listen to this. Let me get another piece of music here. If I took this piece of music, I'm going to drop it in. First thing, music almost always comes in too loud. I'm going to cut it up, just take off a piece there, and then I'm going to turn off this music. And actually, I'll take this. I'll slide it up so you can see it. It's now this one. Let me make it a bright red or something so that it's easier to see. There's bright. So red is the new music. Now, this music does not fit at all. Don't do this. But I want to give you an idea of what happens if you mismatch the music with the voice. And I know absolutely, the first thing I always do is turn the darn things down. They're just going to be too loud to begin with. But listen to this with the voice here.
Are you ready for the most electrifying event of the year? Witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion is back on October 28th at the...
I mean, that's a happy, hey, I'm at a party, I'm out on the beach, I'm trying to sell suntan lotion, or something happy, okay? This is not intensity. This is happy, happy, happy. And I'll give you one more example. But you notice how much I had to turn that down just to get it in the zip code. And that happens with all music. Matter of fact, the only reason it looks so tiny is, remember that I have it, I had it even smaller because the track itself was smaller. We'll take that one away. And just to beat the point up quite a bit, I'll put another thing up here with it, which is different. I don't have to chop it off there, but I will. And then let's listen to this.
Ready for the most electrifying event of the year. Witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion is back on October 28th.
If I hear that stuff, I'm just shaking my head going, okay, that's a total mismatch. That does not make any sense, because that music there is just not intense enough. Now note, there is something, if you're doing this, I can hold down a couple keys and I get my slip cursor and I can drag my music over and at least get it to the more intense. Right now I was playing the intro of that music, and this probably...
Are you ready for the most electrifying event of the year? Witness the ultimate boxing event that will...
Now note, this is important. If I had just left it starting at the beginning, I shouldn't say I never do, but very rarely do I start at the very beginning, partially because all good music will have an introduction. It'll start gentle and it will build.
And is back on October 28th at the Shed Dock.
And if I get into the very introduction, and I'm just dragging it with the slip cursor for those of you who are using Studio One.
Most electrifying event of the year. Witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion is...
Now, for those of you who know me, my wife knows that I don't consider it music until the drums start. And that's just our little thing, because I used to be a drummer for a living. But anyway, when the drums come in this one, the intensity goes up. It never gets to the point where I'm happy with it for this read. But there are a lot of reads this is actually a great piece of music for. It's out of the way. It's gentle. But it has a nice beat and I can dance to it type thing. It sounds good, and when it's gently in the background, totally works. But now I'll go back to this music. So I am going to look for questions in case anything else. Yeah, that slip cursor is a big deal. Now, For those of you that don't know, what happens is I start off with a big piece of music, and it's still there behind the scenes. So if I wanted, I can go ahead and let me zoom this out further. So I have this. I started with a piece of music that was a minute and we're going to call that 1.75 minutes. And then what I did was I cut it off, and I deleted that part. Well, that's not really a delete. It's all there. It's the same thing as if I had just gone ahead and taken it here. Once I've done that and dragged it in, then you can, within this spot, slip it back and forth, and therefore that slip cursor helps me. Now, where it becomes a real big deal is this. If I were using this piece of music, wrong piece of music, but I happen to know I can see visually right here at this point, let me make this bigger here, where we have this red one, there's something starting different at that point.
In a battle for glory and supremacy with the ABO
That's where it comes in, and it's
title on the line.
that's where it's a lot more intense. And you can actually see it in the music that it's a lot more intense right there. And so because of that, one of the things that I would do is I used a little boom explosions, and there's an explosion right here. So let's see what that explosion was on. I mean, unmute this and see again. I'm going to turn this guy down. I'll mute this music.
You, Breathless.
Breathless. So you see this little thing right here, which is the start of a new section of music? I would very often take and use a slip cursor and move that over, and I'd find the word breathless, and I may have to go ahead and listen. I would zoom out, and I would actually have known because my cursor...
Boxing event that will leave you breathless.
Okay, so there's breathless. Right there's breathless. I just happened to get lucky there and put it there pretty close. And then I would use the slip cursor, and I'm going to back it up a little bit, forward, backwards. I would also be doing something like this, where I set up a little loop. This is another tool that you definitely want. Your software, all the software, all the DAWs can do a loop. Turn on the loop, and then that way I can do this sort of thing.
A boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion.
No, I don't want this here. I'm going to turn that guy off and turn my music back on, and then see how I like that particular thing, and I'll adjust my loop just so that I can hear it 2 or 3 times.
Breathless. Fight leave you 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 breathless.
Okay, so that was the transition points. Leave you breathless. He's emphasizing breathless, and if I only had the music and didn't have the explosion, what I would love to have is some sort of transition where the music is going from one feel, and I'm going to play it here. Okay, I'll turn that up just to make sure it's loud enough to hear. We'll do that one more time. So I have a change of feel for the music, and I'm going to look for a point. So rather than starting this music right at the beginning, what I would have done if I'm using this cut of music, which I'm not, but if I did, I would have taken the very, very beginning, and I'm going to fade it in just a little bit. I like it into the first thing here. And then I'm going to align this point. I didn't start at the beginning, so listen to how this sounds with just these two. I will have the voice, and then you're going to have this transition point, which is about 6 seconds in, and you'll hear what happens. You're starting with something. I'm going to turn the music up a little bit so you hear it more. I would adjust the mix later, but I want you to hear the change.
Are you ready for the most electrifying event of the year? Witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night.
Okay, and listening to that now, it was a little too loud. I mean, a little too early. I want to move this way a little bit, and I will check. And what I'll do sometimes, I'll zoom in, and then I will go over here, and that's probably pretty close. Now, I know a little secret here. This very, very leading edge of breathless, I want that a fraction, maybe 0.05 of a second, but behind that. But this will be close enough for our test here.
Event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night.
Okay, so you see what all I'm doing is I'm finding a good spot. Now, there will also be the other, if we're doing commercial stuff, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes. There's the whole thing of, hey, are you 65 and you're dumb and ugly? Yes. Oh, we can help you. And they have, the miracle mask. And so they're trying to advertise to me. And so they go, are you dumb and stupid and ugly? Yes, I am. And then they provide the solution. And when they make that transition, I want the music to transition between one feel and that's the intro feel, which is very gentle, where they're telling me, you need this miracle product. And then we have the secondary thing, and we're going to put that as the solution. And especially if you're doing a 20-second, hey, you're not doing anything on Sunday night because I know you do nothing anyway. Well, now you can have a good time and go watch somebody barbecue. And wherever that transition point is from problem to solution, then I'm going to have a feel change, and I'm going to slip things around and make that work. So I'm always going to have a little fade in, and then the end, sometimes I'm actually taking the end and I'm starting from the end and working my way backwards, or I have one of these points I want to hit, or both. But now I'm going to show you, I really ended up in this piece where I didn't have enough music and I needed to make some music, all right? And making music, I didn't really want to make it from scratch. What I wanted to do was be sure that I went ahead and took what was the original one and made it long enough. So let me grab the original one. I think I have that around here. Upbeat Corporate, I think, that's in my demo folder. And so that is Battle for Freedom. All right, I'm going to drop this in. I'll drop it in here first. I do this sometimes, and then I'm going to drag it and pull it right down here. And then I'll make it a different color so you can see. So this is the other thing that will happen. What color am I going to make that? I don't want red. I'm going to go orange. All right. And I'll drag it up here so that we now have it here. I'm going to get rid of this one because this was just to show you how not to do music. Don't pick those kind of, that softish, fun music that would be inappropriate for this type of read. So you have to kind of read the audience. You need to read the room. And so I found this track. Now, when I started listening to it, I got it from Storyblocks. When I found it, it wasn't right.
Are you ready for the most electrifying event?
So, no. I could have used this intro if I chose to, because there is some good stuff here the way it starts. So check this out. This was what do we call it? An artistic decision. An executive decision. It makes me sound better or more important than I am. And this is what happens. This is what I gave up on. I did not want this because the example, they had sent me something that they heard that they thought they liked, and then I took it and went in a slightly different direction. But I at least knew what they were going for from a feel point of view. But check out this intro against this voice. Okay, so that's not bad with the voice.
Are you ready for the most electrifying event of the year? Witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless. Fight Night Champion is back on October.
It just takes too long to develop, and I made a decision. I like it here, and I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to have this feel.
Are you ready for the most electrifying event of the year? Witness the ultimate boxing.
I wanted that feel that was intense right from the beginning. I only have a minute to get to hook people. And then now notice the problem that I'm having, that this song had the not nice gentle. It still was pretty good. I probably could have used that intro if I wanted, but I just artistically didn't think it was the right thing. And so now I have this dilemma. I've really got a killer piece of music here.
Are you ready for the most electrifying?
It's too short. So what do? I cry or I go find something else. That would have been a viable thing, not the crying, but to go find something else, because this just happened to be a short piece. But there's a better thing to do. And one of the things I can do, and you can do, and we all can do, is we can extend. And what do? We start off and find a starting point. And then, so I happen to know, by the way, so this can get quite sophisticated, because if you don't know anything about music, you may not know where something starts.
Are you ready for the most
And I'm going to turn off the voice. And what I did was I found a starting point. Now I'll show you how I find it, by the way. So this is pretty cool. And I'm drawing a blank. Our Pro Tools guy, go ahead and put it, if you're watching this, put a note in there. Yeah, you mentioned to me the transients. And it's like, yeah. Because I can visually, by the way, you can see the transition points. Let me take orange and make it big. You can actually see where this starts. And if you look, after you look at it a little while, you go, oh, I see. That's what that looks like there. And if it's even louder, and I'm working with it all by itself, it's even easier to see that that's the transition. And so, okay, so I'm going to mute this. I'm going to make sure everything else is muted. And then we're right here. Okay, and then so what I needed to do was I can even look at this. Watch this. You see how it kind of looks the same? It's probably hard to see on your screen. I'm working on, wait till you see what I have coming up soon. I'll be able to zoom in on all these live ones. I've got it. I didn't have time to get it working today, but I have that coming up. That's my next big thing. So I happen to know. So what's going to happen here is I need to find this next point so I can create a little loop and I can go ahead and get what I want, which is I'm going to start right here and watch this. If my cursor's here, I can press the tab key. And the tab key is doing something. And let me zoom in on it so that you can see it. The tab key is moving me to something called transients. My wife's like, well, what's a transient? Well, it's a very high point that doesn't last for very long. Okay, that's kind of that's not the official, but it works. So something that's loud and short, and it's reoccurring at certain intervals, but it's not always symmetrical. So there can be transients between the ones that we want. But no, right here is the start of this. And in the old days, what I would do is you can zoom in, and I could be listening, and I can tell, yep, it's right there. Let me change the background color, go dark. And you can see that cursor right there. It is right at that point. Now, I'm going to go back. I'm going to press tab. There it is. So what am I going to do there? I'm going to put a split in. There's multiple ways I can split by double-clicking. I happen to know Alt or Option X is going to split that. Why did I do that? Well, I'll explain that in a second. I split it. So I'm going to get rid of this in front. I could always get it back, by the way. If I drag this over like this, then it will. That audio is still there, but I'm going to undo that. So I had this little split. So there's my starting point. And then I'm going to work my way over to the end. And first I'm going to just visually, watch this. And I know it's someplace right in here is the end. So I'm going to listen and get myself in the zip code. That's it. It's right somewhere around there. Now, if I visually come in, it's either here or it's here. And I think it's probably somewhere in here, but let's watch one time, and then I'll do it the way that I show everyone else. Okay. There it is. It's right there. So watch this. I'm here. I press tab, 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 tab. I'm tabbing. There it is. That's the spot I want. I'm going to Alt or Option X, which will split. And then I'm going to see, now there's this cool feature you can turn on in this called Loop Follows Selection. I'm going to turn on my looping, and now I'm going to select this. And what did it do? Up in the top, all the software. I mean, it may not be identical to what I'm doing here in Studio One. Pro Tools can do this, Reaper can do this, Audition can do this, Audacity can do this. You can set up loops. The looping is also looking at what I select. If I select this, my loop is going to be over that. That just means the cursor gets to the end, and it goes back and keeps on going. If I don't stop it playing, it'll sit there and play the same thing over and over again. But now what we're going to do is, as I select this, when it gets to the end of this, it should cycle back, and it should just sound like one continuous piece of music if I got it right. If I got it wrong, which I have before, I may have to go back. It might have been that it should have been a little earlier. So we're going to see. I'll just test it. Okay, now, I don't know if you can tell, but that's pretty sweet. That is just amazing. And for all of my musician friends there, I am going to turn off the looping, but I'm going to duplicate it. So duplicate in Studio One is a single key. If I press D, it would duplicate it and just put it next to it. I don't want that. I'm going to undo that. And it's going to be Option D, Alt D, and it now did an insert. It took this that I had highlighted and put it in. So now I have two of them. And you'll see that now we're getting close, and now I almost have enough music for the whole thing that I need, and so it works pretty well. So listen to this. You should not be able to tell that I've transitioned from one. Look, there's one here, and watch when the cursor passes that point. I'll zoom in a little bit, and if you're counting, for all my musician friends, count, clap, whatever works for you. It's seamless. It doesn't. Nobody would know that I ever did that or I extended that. And I've done that 1,000 times where I've taken a piece. I found a piece of music. The beginning I didn't like for my purposes. It was a nice beginning, but I've extended it out. And then what that gives me is the point where I now have something that's long enough for this music, starts with the feel that I want because I like this section, and then listen to the end of this piece of music. Okay. Oh, now I cut that off. That's my fault because it's not really cut off, but I cut it off. It'll fade out appropriately right there. It'll fade out. Okay. So that fades out really nice. Now, so what I want to do is, but that's getting too quiet because when I put the voice back in there, you're going to see that he's still all hyped up.
Come, be part of the action. Garcia versus Lamb, October 28th at the Shed Dockyard. It's showtime.
Okay, so and this is all too loud, so it's not going to be that loud. So I'm going to turn on another feature, and everybody can do this. I have this on right now. I'm going to turn on something called gain envelope. There's more than one ways to do that. There is more than one way to do this. I can turn on the gain envelope. I can go ahead and I could have split this up and just split it and had it slowly, what is it called? Fading, fading up instead of fading out. But I just put in a little envelope here. And the cool thing about that is I can just go right here, put in a node here. I now can take this as much as I want. And if I want to change the curve on it, I can do that so that I get a nice part. And that just works.
Boxing event of a lifetime. Get your tickets now at epicbda.com. Be part of the action. Garcia versus Lamb, October 28th at the Shed Dockyard. It's showtime.
Okay, and then I'm going to, of course, go down and unmute my little explosion here on Showtime. I'm going to do that. That's going to be a shift down. I unmuted it, and that's just what it's going to sound like. Get your tickets now at epicbda.com. Be part of the action. Garcia versus Lamb, October 28th at the Shed Dockyard. It's showtime. Okay, so I have the explosion in there. You have this. You can extend music, and if you know about the tab key, then you can tab to transients. That means to different transition points. That will not work with every piece of music, but it's going to work with about 95% of the music that you'll ever get from any of the download services. If you got a jazz piece that was a legitimate jazz band playing live, then it doesn't work as well because for a set of reasons that I won't go into. If you have any commercial music that you buy from almost all the services out there, yeah, this is from Audio Blocks, Storyblocks, but what is it? There's a whole bunch of services out there where you can get some good music, and if you're using them, they're almost all commercial type music with a groove, and that stuff, it's really easy. The transients, well, you can tab to them. When you're there, you can split, then you can duplicate it, and you can even mix. You can do some very interesting things just depending on what's going on, all right? So this has gone a long time already. There are about 20 other things we could talk about here in order to make this right, because one of the things that isn't obvious is, well, two things. When I get the music, I make a copy of it. So I get the original music track, and I'm always just making a copy of that. If I drag the piece of music in here, I would say, all right, there's my original, and I would go ahead and take it, and I would right-click on it, and I would just duplicate it. And then I'm going to mute one of them, and a lot of times I'll even go in there and right-click and say hide it. Now, do I have to do that? Because I could drag in another one anytime. So it's just a matter of grabbing it, not having to worry about it. And then because I have one hidden, I could go back if I mess it all up. And I remember, because I'm going to cut it up and change it, I could always undo all that stuff. It's non-destructive. It's all there in the background. But a lot of times I'll have another copy of it, or I'll drag it back in if I really totally messed it up. But sometimes I'll just do that, or I'll do half of it, and then I'll save a copy of that. You can go back and do that, and you just give yourself a little safety valve, and you try things. And a lot of this stuff is learning, but then, you know, because when I have the real one, let me see the real one here. Yeah, that's this one right here, okay? So that's this one. So I'm going to get rid of the other ones, just so you know. Let me remove this track, and then I'm going to remove this track, and I'll just show you something else, and I'll cycle back on another one. This one auto ducks. Now, in this context, it doesn't help as much, because auto ducking is brilliant when the script has a little more breathing in it. This is an intense from the beginning to the end, and so I don't really need to auto duck it. I do have the auto ducking working. If you watch, if I show you the compressor, there's a compressor working in the background. This compressor, oh, I didn't even have it turned on there. I had turned it off for something else that I had done here. If I side chain that back to the voice and just click here, now this track is going to listen to the voice track, and it is going to, as the voice track is playing.
You ready for the most electrifying event of the year? Witness the ultimate boxing event that will leave you breathless.
So if you see this yellow line here, this track is being turned down by the amount that's shown on the yellow, and it is going to turn down. If that means if there's a break in the audio, so if this was going with a video and they were showing the two fighters looking at each other intently, then during that point the music may have come up to give some excitement in there. Oh, I could have put it on the crowd, where the crowd would come up while they're looking at each other. Once you know how this stuff works, but it's a little bit different for each piece of music. And I know everyone's like, oh, I want to do the auto ducking, and yeah, but it's just not. It's kind of, it gets into the cooking thing where how much salt should I put in that pizza? Well, it depends on what other ingredients you're using and all the other factors of it. What type of music is it? And I can't even match music visually, volume-wise, without them sounding different. And it's the same with two voices. By the way, if you're ever working with two voices, when my wife and I do dual voices, she cannot go ahead and match my voice to her voice visually because it doesn't work. If she puts out both of our voices at the same visual look, I'm louder. But it's always the same ratio. So what she ends up doing is once she ends up knowing what the ratio is, she can look at it instantly and go, he's too loud, before she even listens to it. And then she'll listen to it to make sure, yeah, that makes sense. And then, so Dale asked a great question. Once you do this kind of manipulation and you save it because this is really good, can you save that? And it's like, heck yeah. Just for perspective, we'll go over to my extended songs. I have 99 songs, I think, on this one. No, I have 100 songs now. And when I go through here, these are the songs that I've manipulated, and I'll give you a couple examples. Let me get rid of some extra clutter that I have in here just because I was doing something else. I don't need this one. I don't need this one. All right. So, and then I don't need this one. So here's what I have. I have 100 songs that are here. These are things I've manipulated. Matter of fact, my wife had one thing one time that was an e-learning video, and I don't remember what it was. It was probably 5 years ago or so. And we made a decision. For this one, it was so gentle in the background, we were just going to let it loop because that was not the point of it. It was just creating a feel. And I ended up with doing this kind of thing. I was a little more, it's not as symmetrical if you see this one here. This was the original. Well, that one's even extended. That one, I got 10 minutes out of it. And then when I wanted to, I chopped it up. And you can kind of see here that there's this and this. And then there's a big one. And then there's a big medium and with this. And then there's the medium one. And I ended up figuring out all the little phrases and just repeating them over and over again to where I got 22 minutes worth of music. And you just can't find that. But once you have it, then I keep it. So every time I manipulate some audio, exactly what I would do, Dale, I would go ahead and take this spot here, and I would go like this, and I would right click, and I would copy, and I'd kind of do all that with keyboard shortcuts usually. And I would go over here to my extended song list. I would go to the very bottom, and then I would take this right here. It's actually, I started it, and then I would paste that in, and then I would zoom in and go to the very bottom there. Oh, and right there it is. And then I have it. And then I would save this one. And now it will put that all together, meaning it is available to me to be used in another track. Because yes, what a hassle to go through and do 100 of these things, but I've done this over the last, 7 years. I just checked my stats. I've downloaded over 1,000 songs from Studio Blocks. I think that's what it's called. They changed their name at some time. It was called Audio Blocks. And each one of them I've manipulated in some way so that I have sections of songs that I can just grab at will, and I don't usually keep them quite this small. Let's go ahead and change it to say that is more like what I might have, and I happen to know so many of them I've used so many times in different things. Let me turn off this. I can just go through and just listen. Here's a perfect example, by the way. This song starts off with this little, it's piano. And then when we get right to here, the drums come in, so it becomes real music. I have used that. We've used that on 100 different pieces. I like it where it comes. So depending on the, a lot of times we will have just a few seconds of this intro. And there we solve the problem. It was a nice little piano thing, and then it comes in with the drums and the bass player, and then we're solving the problem. And I just, yes, I have so many of these. And then I have one, this was a Halloween. And that one was a kind of a eerie, Halloween-y thing that was a scary, spooky thing. And I crossfaded. I didn't even talk about, remind me next time to talk about crossfades. And I needed something longer, and when you got to here, now, if I don't show you that visually, most people would never pick up that there was a crossfade between two things of those. But I needed, this is another case, I needed about 12.5 minutes worth for whatever the piece we were doing. This one I needed, 12 minutes because of something that we were doing. Check this out. I like that one. I really like that one. I love the way the bass players, little groovy stuff happening there. So sometimes I just pull out and use this one, and I have it repeated over and over again. And sometimes I'm just bringing in this just before, so that I have this. And I can be using that for the part of the thing that says, hey, is your hair ugly? Are you 63? Are you an old guy that should be put out to pasture? Yes, I am. But oh, now we have the solution, the magic, whatever. And I'd buy it, of course, because of the music. It was right, and it made me feel good right here, because, hey, there's my solution right there. And I'll definitely do that. And then depending on what else is going on, pick other things. And I could go through, and each one of these songs has a different feel just because it just was something. I have a whole collection of Christmas music. Okay, so yeah, I save them because this Christmas one, I needed I remembered this one. This is many years ago, but I needed to sound the intro to this piece, not the part that was at the end. And so I chopped it up and had it repeat over and over and over again. And it works great every year. We make a bunch of money because we can do that. Okay. So this is way longer than I'd hoped, but there are so many other moving pieces. There are so many other moving pieces to this. And I just don't want you to think that this was even close to comprehensive, because we deal with looping, crossfades, gain envelopes, reverb, sound effects, auto ducking. Sometimes I'm doing some things with EQ, both with the voice, and I'm doing EQ on the music. I can do some things. So instead of auto ducking the music from a volume point of view, I can auto duck it from an EQ point of view. There's probably 20 other artistic options that you can have, but you just need to get comfortable with the basic tools and moving things around and experimenting. And then when I look back at something that I did 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, it's exactly what happened here. I guarantee you that if I did it today, I actually would have, no matter what they told me. Because sometimes and by the way, as you get good at it, then I trust myself. Meaning I know from experience that this explosion is actually better here.
At the Shed Dockyard, it's showtime.
I know that's better than what I sent him. Okay, but I know that because I've done it long enough to know how that feels.
Dockyard, it's showtime.
Okay, and so sometimes I'll send them what they ask for. Sometimes I don't because they don't notice when it's actually right. That's the funny thing about all this stuff. When you do it right, nobody really goes, wow, Don, it's amazing. They just go, I don't know, it sounds right. Yeah, big deal. Anybody could do that. And that's what I want. I don't want them to really, wow. I mean, I just want them to go, it sounds great. The Tony the Tiger thing, that's all we really want. But what I will tell you this, if you have the ability to do this, because it is an investment and you don't have to do it, but if you can do it, we have won so many jobs over the years because we sent them what they asked for, which is this raw track without reverb, just raw. We've also sent them a context track, which has combined all these things together. And because of that, they're like, oh, gosh, we should be paying you guys to do the music and put that all together. And we have made a lot. And then guess what? It's a competitive advantage because not only can we give them this version here, they'll pay more money, a lot more money, to have the fully produced because they were going to pay somebody anyway. So, well, they're going to pay somebody. We're already in there doing it. And as you build up your collection, Dale, the bigger thing is I started a something that I call my extended tunes, extended songs, yeah. And I actually even, since you're using Studio One there, one of the things I do is I have it in my pinned group at the top. So today I happened to add something, so it's at the top naturally, but it's also in my pinned group. So that means that no matter what, because sometimes I don't change it for a few months. I just grab a piece of music off it, use it, grab a piece of music off it, use it, grab something off it. I don't change it. If I need something new, I go grab it and then I'll save it again. And since this list is ordered by default by how recently it was opened, sometimes it can get down there that I can do some other things. And so I throw it in a little pin group. It's pinned, and that way it's hidden out of my way most of the time because that'll drift down there. Like this one is way down here, but if it's also in the group. And then I can get to it quickly. And you can have both open and switch back and forth with them easy. All right? So this is way longer than it's supposed to be. Let me look at comments. And do I have my favorite? So let me, how important side? Okay. So how important to a piece like this would sidechaining the music to the voiceover track? So Johnny, in this case, because the voiceover track is so intense and kind of, I don't want to say monolithic, but it starts off big and it stays big the whole time because of the nature. It's a fighting spot or it's a advertisement for a fight. And they gave a lot of script, more script than what I would have put in that. But because of it being so intense, there isn't any space. The auto ducking I still had on the music track when I did it. And part of that is because sometimes the client will come back later and go, hey, can you put that there? Or can you move, because they have some visual going on, can you move that over? Or they added a line. Let me show you. Here's what happened actually. The original one, the mandate was it had to be less than a minute. So Donnie did the voiceover. That's this track at the top. When he did the original voiceover, he did it at 59 seconds. Okay, and there's probably a hair less than that. But no, it's exactly 59 seconds because it was supposed to be a 1 minute spot. We didn't have the explosion at the end, and we were going to fade out the crowd for that last second. And that was the original spot because originally it was mandated to be a 1 minute spot. And then maybe your clients are different. Our clients come back to us with revisions or they hear it and they go, oh, okay, can we add this other thing? And we're like, sure. Do you understand that's not going to be under a minute? I mean, we can't. But they wanted this last little bit here.
It's showtime.
They wanted the it's showtime, okay? And they added another something earlier that I don't remember what they added. but they came back. I think it was one of the fighters is from Mexico, and they realized that they should have said that. And I don't know, sometimes clients are this way. They don't know what they want up front very often, but once they hear it, they go, oh, now that I hear that, hey, can you put another explosion here? Can you do this there? Sure. By the way, if you order an extra burger, so you eat all that, you go to a burger place and then you say, gee, I'm still hungry. Can I have another fries? Sure, $2.79, whatever, 2 pounds if I'm over in the good part of the world. What you know is that, sure, happy to do that. That's a revision. We're going to charge you for it, but that's okay. Or if they're a good enough client, now sometimes we'll do, hey, this time it's on us. No, that we normally charge for that, and we're just being super nice this week. We have a Don's Nice for a Change sale going on, and so we might do something for free for them if they're the right type of client that is going to buy other things for us. But it happens all the time. And then so now we just explain, hey, you're going over a minute. Is that okay? Do you understand? Yeah, we could go up to 1:05. And so the auto duck sometimes comes in handy because once it's there, then as things shift around, client says, can you put a pause in there? Yeah, it automatically just changed it, and we don't have to mess with the music volume because of the auto ducking is working. So auto ducking, I'm 90% of the time I'm putting music in, I am using auto ducking, but I've done it 150. Yeah, I've done it a lot of times. But if I've done it less than 1,000 times, I'd be shocked. And in so doing it, I've learned I can look at music and almost always get a relative. I'm pretty in the zip code with the volume level, and you will be too because it's an experience thing. If you bake cookies all the time, you know what they look like when they're done, when you need to take them out of the oven. If you go ahead and work on a car, you know it sounds funny, or any other mechanical device. It sounds a little funny if you work on them all the time because you know what it should sound like when it's right. And it's the same thing that happens here. There's some experience that goes with it that you can be fantastic. But of course, when you have the good tools, it's so much easier. And while I only used reverb on this, note there were some other options I have that I'll go over another day because Studio One and many of the other good DAWs have a great set of tools that you can use when you need them. And I could spend a half hour on some of the different tools. You could spend 20 minutes on the reverb just going over the fine points of here's the options that you have. Then there's some other tools I use all the time in VoiceOver if I need certain effects. We're coming up on Halloween. It's a time where people buy things and they want a zombie sound. Well, of course, I'm the authority on what a zombie sounds like, as are you. We both could be an authority on it because I don't know what they really sound like, but we can make them spooky. We can make them, we're going to combine reverb with some chorus, with some flanger. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of great tools that the musicians normally use on instruments, and we can use them on the voice to make it sound really good there. All right, let me check for any other. Do I have my favorite library for music sound effects? Yeah, I do. There are some other ones. I have a tendency, I have used Storyblocks here for, I just looked, 2016 was the first time I downloaded something from them. I was kind of download history. I was looking for something, and they started showing history, and you can sort it by date. And I thought, so May 14th, 2016 was the first time I used them to download something, at least that they have record of. I've downloaded 1,024. And once you download something, you can use it forever. So, but every year I've paid my $150, and I like it. Now, there are other good services that are going on. I don't have their plan that gives me video. They're now doing video. I tried it out for a couple weeks and went, yeah, okay. So there's more than one video option, but what I'm saying is I really like this one. They do a good job. They have a lot of stuff, but there's about 4 or 5 of them now that are really good, and some of them are a little cheaper, but these guys have done it, and I've stuck with them for, I don't know how many years that is. I can't do that math for. That's 7 years. 7 years now I've been working with this same thing, and I've downloaded 1,000 things, and I have 100 of them that I've manipulated and made longer. I have 900 of them that I've downloaded and used as is. Now that includes some of those downloads are boom. I have 5 different booms that I downloaded. And sometimes while I'm looking through sound effects, I may download 10 or 15 of them and only use 3 when it's finally done. So there are probably 150 of them there that I downloaded. I thought, that'd be good for a future date, and I haven't used it yet. Okay, so let's look for other things here. And Steve Wilson, hey, good to see you there, Steve. Let's see if there's anything else. And loud and clear. Da, da, da. All right, let me check my other. Man. All right, Tune Pocket. Thank you, Thomas. So that's good. If anybody else has any other things that they use, be sure to throw them in the comments on Facebook. Throw them in the comments on YouTube. Note on YouTube, insanely helpful. Please subscribe. Go ahead and give it a like. Otherwise, nobody sees any of this stuff. It's like spitting into the wind. It's such a big YouTube universe. So be sure to go ahead and subscribe over there. And we'll do part 2 of this because there's so much. And already, man, I just shouldn't spend so much time, but whatever. That's what it takes. And we haven't scratched the surface. Okay? There's just so much there. But I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope this gives you a good starting point. And note, you try to do this stuff with some of the weaker tools, and life just is more difficult. When you have the slip cursor, when you have the tab to transients, and there are a few of the more advanced DAWs that just make this brain dead easy. You do have to know a couple shortcuts. You do have to know something's possible. You do have to practice it. I'm learning pickleball. You can't play without practicing. You can't be good at it without doing some of it. I mean, I can understand the theory, and I can watch YouTube videos all day long on playing any sport, whether it's hockey or pickleball or tennis or badminton. It just doesn't matter. I have to do a bunch of it to be reasonable at it. And a lot of times it's multiple years of playing any sport or playing cards or cooking or pick your hobby. It's going to take some time to be great at it. And the more you do, the more you get other ideas. And I steal ideas from the musicians all day long. I watch them do something and I realize, oh, we could use that for voiceover. And that's what happens to me all the time. I steal stuff from the voiceover. I watch all these videos that technically don't apply to me. I get one idea out of a whole video. So you guys have a fantastic day. I did not expect this to go this long, but we'll do part 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever over time here. If you have other questions or comments, be sure to throw them into the groups. Throw them onto YouTube. That's the best place for the comments to be about things that you want me to go over that would help you. I ain't doing this for my health. I'm doing this for you and a whole bunch of other things. Studio One is kicking butt in the voiceover business. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to do that. But do subscribe on YouTube. Super helpful. Johnny Heller and I will be back. I'm going off next week to do a conference in the Boston area. So we'll be dark for 1 week, but we'll be back. All right. You have a great one. We'll talk to you later. Bye.